Now, I have mentioned a couple of times his name, but our next speaker will inspire you to a level of confidence of your own abundant possibilities that you had never previously given yourself permission to consider. He is the friend of friends, and I feel very honoured and privileged to be included in that group. He is the people of people. He is the teacher of teachers, the leader of leaders. His biography, when it was released by Pan Macmillan, became an instant bestseller. And he is the subject of 3 independent documentaries by the ABC, BBC National Geographic, and most recently NBC. When his documentary A Step Too Far was released by NBC in America, 6.5 million people watched it in the first night. He is one of our country's best professional international speakers, and he is here today to share with us how you can travel to a number of exotic locations around the world with Jamie and himself, and how you will be given the tools to pay your way and help others in the process. Before we meet the man, I would like you to have a look at this.
This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Injured Antarctic adventurer Peter Bland forced to wait for a family reunion. Another attempt will be made tonight to
Pete fell in an avalanche. The avalanche took him out. He went down about 40 metres before going over a cliff edge down into a crevasse, which was another 40 metres. He impacted incredibly heavily. The fall he took was just a phenomenal fall, and the impact must have been incredible. For him to be even alive, I think, is a test of his strength and spirit.
I'm about to go back to the hospital now. There is a concern about his heart, that surgery he's had on his heart, and the doctors here are advising that perhaps we should fly him out.
I don't know why on earth I use that footage to open up my talk. It gives me the heebie-jeebies every single time I see it. I'm a professional speaker. I've seen it a fair bit. Business is good. But still I use it. Why do I still use it if it really does scare me to the core like it does and brings up these emotions? Why? You know why? To remind me, exactly as you say, how lucky I am now here, to be here speaking to you, sharing what I teach, having had that journey. And it makes me curious. And it's good to be curious, isn't it? That's right. It's good to be curious about your own capacity, about your own greatness, and about your own possibilities. In fact, by definition, once you give up that right to be curious and then to take actions about where that curiosity might take you, you're actually giving up your right to be great. And the only reason it dawned upon me such emotions as to how lucky I am now is because you're right. I gave up that right to be great. And all of us have that right within us to be great at every single moment. It's all a matter of choice, isn't it? So it's good to be curious, isn't it? And I wasn't. In fact, what happened to me last time I was curious is I was curious where our lunch was. I stepped out of this tent. Last day of an expedition across the Antarctic Peninsula, 2 years in the planning, 2 months in the executing from the eastern side to the western side, dropping off sheer cliffs on the western side of Antarctica. Last day, I said to my mate, it's blowing about 100 knots, strong winds. I said, Jay, mate, it's too rough to walk today. Let's stay put. And I stepped 20 feet out of the tent to go and get the lunch out of the sleds. In that 5 minutes that I was out there, I felt this vibration. Like, have you ever been like on an underground catching a train somewhere and you can kind of feel the train before you can see it? Well, all of a sudden I could feel the train before I could see it. And then when I looked up to see what it was an avalanche. A giant avalanche of rock and rubble and ice was coming screaming down the mountain. And as quickly as I scrambled back to get to the safety of the tent, which was dug in like an igloo, I didn't make it. And I fell 50 metres down the mountain, down a crevasse, vertically fell 14 stories of an office building. And I lay there for 3 days. My friend Joe, who thought, well, that's been a while, during that time, because he was curious as to where's his friend, he came out there and he peered down this crevasse. And he couldn't get down there without anchoring the rope next to the tent, using his harness and using the crampons which go on your Italian designer shoes. They go on like this quite easily. And he peered down this crevasse and he saw the blood-spattered body of his best friend. But he was curious to see if I really was dead. So he threw back the rope because he couldn't use the rope because I fell a rope length and one man can only use half a rope, half up, half down. Got rid of the harness, couldn't use the harness. All he could go down with was his crampons and his ice pick. And step, step, pick, pick, step, step, pick, pick. Down, down, down he went. And as he got closer towards me, I fell 14 stories. When he was 4 stories away from me, he says, at this stage, the whole way thinking that I was dead, you see, but he was best friends with my family, my parents, my wife. He wasn't going to go back and say, we think Pete's dead. I know he's dead. And he came down there 4 stories from where I was, and he saw a tweak in my foot, and there was some movement. 3 stories down, and he saw my chest rising. 1 story down from my body, and he saw my eyes flittering. It's good to be curious, because you don't know what might be on, what we don't know. I mean, we only know what we know, don't we? Boy, oh boy, there must be a hell of a lot of stuff out there we don't know. And imagine how powerful and encompassing our life might be if we remain curious as to our own capacity, our own greatness, and what might be out there for us. Thank God my friend Jay was. He found that I had broken bones in my leg, crushed pelvis, suspected broken back, every rib on my left-hand side broken, fractured skull, bleeding from the nose, ear and mouth, and pretty severe brain damage. Most of that was his assessment. He already knew about the brain damage. Jay went to school with me. For 3 days, he lay on me to give me his body temperature so I didn't die of hypothermia. At least that's his excuse. It was a boarding school. You see, I could tell you a story tonight and go on about the rescue and the heroic actions that they went through and how you haul an 85-kilo guy out of a 50-metre crevasse and to the surface and then haul him to the side for 6 days until the helicopter got to me. And 6 days until my femur was put back in. I got a condition called avascular necrosis when your bone dies. But I won't tell you that story because I want to tell you a story that can take you anywhere you like. And what I'm curious about is this. Do you have to fall down a crevasse to get lucky in life? Or can you learn from others? Like Lou just said, huh? Learn from others that have been there before you. And don't go down the crevasse. Don't get the scars. Don't get the brain damage. Don't go through the 5 years of rehabilitation and everything else. Learn from others that have been there before you. Well, you see, I wasn't as educated as you on that front, and I was pig-headed and stubborn. And all I had out of that fall, all I had out of it, was debt and guilt. You know what I thought I might do on a Saturday morning? I thought I might contemplate my debt, because that's a lovely thing to contemplate. And recommendation, if you want to have a great weekend, what you should do is go and get all your bills, medical bills, chemist, pharmacist, whatever, petrol, school fees, whatever, just get all your bills, add them up. And make sure they sort of turn red, and then just beat yourself up about how your income isn't coming enough and you haven't got enough to survive, and just that sets you up for a really good weekend. You can really feel good about things. And then you could maybe go here and you could think about your guilt and how you feel guilty about what you could have done and should have done, and if only. That's a good formula, isn't it? Well, that was a formula that I chose, you see. My formula was to focus totally on my debt and my guilt. And you know that focus becomes reality. And the more you focus on what's in your mind become a reality, how big does that reality become? Bigger and bigger and bigger. In fact, it became so big that I completely forgot who I was and what I was doing. In fact, I forgot the very thing that I'd been taught before by a great mentor, but I'd completely forgotten it. This has been taught by schools around the world. It's been pursued by religious groups, cults, great leaders for centuries. I think it was best summarised by the great philosopher, an Englishman actually, Austin Powers. Your mojo. I completely forgot about my mojo because I used to have mojo. I used to have that thing that makes you go out there and have fun and vivacious, engage with people and see opportunities and just jump in there and go for it and open up a conversation, not even knowing where it was going, but just being open to being curious about the possibilities of where it might go. See, I used to have all that. I used to travel around the world and be a speaker in New York. I used to do boxing and mountain biking and ice climbing in Antarctica. I used to do all these things. But I've completely forgotten who I was. It's getting hot in here, isn't it? Hot in here, isn't it? I think I might take this shirt off. Get your mojo here. You like that? See, I used to have mojo. Who likes some mojo? Get some mojo in your life. I was giving a talk the other day, actually. I was giving a talk the other day in Sydney, and a lady in the audience said, "Oh, here we go. Here's some mojo, people. Get your mojo." Mojo. Now, mojo, somebody and I know that you're curious now, how do you get a t-shirt? I'll tell you how you get that. But B, somebody said from the audience, which is a valid question, what does mojo look like? To which I said, hello? What is this, chopped liver? This is mojo with a microphone. Now, see, I know the distinction, and the reason it brings up these emotions about that footage when I see it, about how lucky I am now because life is great now. And those photos were taken, some of them last week. The motorbiking with Jamie and the crew up in Fraser Island, that was full on and it was fantastic. My only claim to fame there, by the way, 13 speakers that you might know, many of us, go up to Fraser Island, 7 got back. I was one of the 7, but only just. At any rate, life's good now. But that's 10 years since the accident. And for 5 years since the accident, I chose to dwell only upon the debt and the guilt. And as a result of that, I completely forgot who I was. In fact, I didn't think I was worthy of the job that I had, which is formerly professionally raising funds for a charity called the Multiple Sclerosis Society. And prior to that, I was a fund manager trading options, Forex, with elders. But I'd forgotten all that because I wouldn't allow myself to be me. You see? Have you ever forgotten your own greatness and just allowed yourself to settle for something that just isn't good enough for you? Well, I did. Meanwhile, 3 years gone past, this femur, which has gotten worse because the blood flow was stopped off for so long, got worse and worse and worse. I couldn't walk. So I said, "Doctor, give me a new hip." Doctor gives me a new hip. 6 months since I get my new hip, I'm out there flogging these moisturisers, hair care products and exfoliator products. Network marketing door to door. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you think I was loving that? Very close to 0, maybe on the negative side. In fact, I was not at ease with flogging moisturisers and hair care products and exfoliators to friends. I was not at ease doing that. In fact, I was at dis-ease about doing that. And when you push yourself hard to do something that you are dis-ease with, what might you get? A disease? Hello. I remember this day I came home and I said, gee, I've been flogging these moisturisers all day, hating it, but justifying. Who can justify something? Who's justified in the past doing something that just so... Come on, hands up. I'll get my ice pick out, hang on. Hands up, have you ever justified doing something that just was not worthy of your greatness? Well, thank you for sharing. This is Dr. Phil and Oprah. Well, I was hating it until this day I came home and I say, I've got a bit of a pain down here near the hip side. She pulls the tracksuit down and says, oh my God, you've got a massive infection near where the hip operation was. You better call your doctor and go to hospital. I said, nah. I called my doctor. He says, go to hospital. I said, I'll be back in an hour or 2 hours because we went out to the city and back. I live on a farm. Or worst case scenario, I'll be back in the morning. 3 weeks goes past, I'm still in hospital. The doctors come round and they say, listen, Pete, you're amongst the best doctors in Australia fighting infectious diseases. You're getting the most powerful antibiotics you can get. Is there something going on in your life that really isn't sitting right with you? And I said, well, to be honest, I'm doing this network marketing and it's killing me. And he says, you're not wrong there. I'm only a doctor, but if I was you, I'd be you. Ha! He was a mate of mine who was also the doctor. That's why I went in there. I went to school with him. I'm only your friend. But if I was you, I'd be you. Boy, oh boy. I came home that night and I said, I'm back and I've got a dream. Because I'd completely forgotten who I was. But it took some convincing, because when he says, if I was you, I'd be you, I had to go through a whole day of therapy in my Avenue hospital bed from a friend coaching me to be me. That night I went home for sure, but that day I was resisting. If I was you, I'd be you. And I said to Andrew, his name, I said, Andrew, but who am I? And he says, you're an adventurer. And you teach people to be adventurous. And I said, yeah, Andrew, but that's the old me. That's before the avalanche, and that's before the debt, and that's before all the guilt. Have you seen my bills? And he says, Blandy, I went to school with you, and all I know is the character in front of me is not showing the characteristics of the boy that I went to school with. Step up, or I don't want to be your friend. It's good to have people in your life sometimes. It'll keep you accountable for who you could be rather than who you're settling to be. Yeah? And Andrew was one of those friends. And I said, mate, I can't go back to those. Mate, that's the old me. That's how I used to be. And he says, aren't you the guy that started a business from nothing when you left school, from nothing in your backyard in a washing machine? Didn't you end up getting an export contract to Japan and selling to the whole Japanese market, and then you're doing that to become a professional sailor, sailing boats? And I said, yeah, well, that's true. That is true. Actually, what happened was this. I was travelling through South America for a year. I'd done a commerce degree the last thing I was going to do was actually use it. So I came home, my friend had two business ideas. One was a brilliant business idea. We did the other one. And the other one was this shortbread recipe, flour, sugar and butter, and we started baking them. We literally started baking them in a washing machine. I found generally on a normal cycle. And you got perfect set of shortbread every single time. Anyway, we're pumping these shortbread out. It's going fantastic. I still at local the deli bars, and think, what's bigger? Because I was curious, you see. What's bigger than the local deli? Oh, Melbourne, Damaroo, David Jones, Myers, Hilton Hotel, Crown Casino. Well, that's bigger. I'll do that. Oh, yeah, they took it, bit of a change here, but that's okay. They took it. Oh, that's okay. I've done national. What's bigger than that? I was curious, because it's good to be curious, isn't it? What's bigger than that? Well, I'm doing all this offshore racing boats. I wanted to get into the real offshore internationally. I'm just doing domestically. I know. I'll export my cookies to Japan, and that'll justify me going to Japan, and then I can bring back the boat from the winning yacht in the Melbourne Osaka yacht race, which is the longest double-handed yacht race in the world. That's a good idea, isn't it? So I thought I'll do that. So I wrote a letter to every single skipper in the race, went to see JETRO. JETRO stands for Japanese External Trade Organisation. That's the Japanese organisation which sponsors small businesses. They look at my case, they go, Mr. Bland, we will sponsor you to go to Tokyo Food Expo, the largest food expo in the world. One small, squashy little thing. Mr. Takeda, he come from Tokyo in 2 weeks' time. He conduct a quick tour of your factory. Anyway, that's the whole story. So it's good to be curious, isn't it? Yeah? Yes, I got a factory, and yes, I pumped the cookies out, and yes, I went to Japan, and yes, I got the contract to bring the boat back from Japan to Australia. But here I am still in my Avenue hospital bed, deep in my pillow, and there's my doctor friend Andrew telling me my own stories about who I was in the past, but wasn't allowing myself to be now. Are you with me? And you know what? This isn't my story. This is your story. I'm just metaphorically telling you some examples of my life. But I want you to contemplate your greatness and where it may have been and where it will come from in the future. Because I've forgotten mine. And it took a friend to take me for a day-long journey through my own stories. And he says to me, but after that, didn't you go to Antarctica and save that expedition and, get that UK guy that took you under his wing and became your mentor? And I was like, yeah, Andrew, but that's the old me. That's, haven't you seen my debt and you seen all the guilt that I've got around the family selling the farm to pay for my airlift and all the rest of it? He says, don't give me the rubbish. Didn't you go to Antarctica on a 60-foot yacht? Yeah, with 10 lives on board, 6 mil of aluminium between 10 lives and icebergs the size of small countries. Now, there were 10 people on board, 3 of whom had just climbed Mount Everest. Some of them were great climbers, but they weren't all such great sailors. And mojo, which we all want, it's pretty unanimous, everyone wants mojo, is that right? Bit of a hands up, everyone wants mojo? Okay, well, one of the vital ingredients of mojo is having the confidence to commit to opportunities. If you got mojo, a sure sign if you're looking for mojo, but thank goodness you found it. If you're looking for mojo, you'll find it's a formula of having a confidence to commit to opportunities. And this is a story about opportunities, because you know what opportunities are? Slippery little suckers. And this is a classic. Thanks, Helen. You're on a 60-foot yacht. It's minus 60 degrees wind chill factor. You've got frozen salt water on the deck and on the mast and all the ropes, halyards and sheets. In fact, it was so cold, the salt water was freezing on the mast. We'd be chipping the mast so the yacht didn't get ice heavy at the mast and the mast acting like a keel. Well, one of the sheets on the right-hand side, otherwise known as the starboard side, port and starboard, one of the sheets on the right-hand side had gone over the gunnel, the edge of the boat, because they were so thick with ice, you couldn't actually tack the boat without first getting the ropes and putting all the ropes in the cockpit and pouring boiling water over the ropes to break the ice off them. Well, one of these ice-laden ropes had gone over the edge of the boat and was dangling in the side. A very unusual thing happens this night. This particular opportunity came into my life that ended up getting me a book, got me a documentary. Icebreak Heart was the Australian story back in 2002 because of this rope. What are opportunities? Slippery little suckers. You've got to grab them right there and then. Otherwise, they're gonski. People with mojo have the confidence to commit to those opportunities. And if they capitalise on them, it might make money. Good on you. But if you don't capitalise on those opportunities, then they might be gonski. You with me? This is a classic right here. The ropes goes over the side. The wind dies down. 3 days. We're flogging around in Commonwealth Bay, Antarctica, trying to get there, but just couldn't get there because we're not sailing on water, we're sailing on like a 7-Eleven Slurpee, like a mushy ice. And we just couldn't get there because when the wind died down, what happened is we did the logical thing. You're on a motorboat, right? A motorboat. And the wind dies down. But you've got to have momentum because if you don't have momentum, you can't move the boat away from these icebergs the size of small countries. So what do? Start the engine, absolutely. Start the engine, bang. Rope goes on the propeller, no more propeller, no more motor, and no more going to Antarctica. For 3 days, we flog around in Commonwealth Bay, Antarctica, trying to get there, but just not able to get there because we haven't got the motor. Some wind's picked up, but we just can't push through the ice to get there. 1 second, you're going upwind at 10 kilometres an hour. Next thing you know, you're going screaming straight past the iceberg you just saw at 30 k's an hour. And the patron for the trip, a guy called David Hempelman Adams, a fellow I'll tell you about in a second, the only guy in the world to have climbed the 7 summits, that's the highest summit of every continent, and to walk the 4 poles. He's a philanthropist, he's a documentary maker, and he was just the man that I wanted to be. I wanted to be like him. And he was patron for this trip, and he was in what I call a conundrum. A bit of a conundrum, 10 people on a boat, stuck in Antarctica, life-challenging, and we're not going to get there. Well, that's what I call an opportunity. And I felt that I was in a place where great people had been. I mean, there was my great hero, Sir Douglas Mawson. Sir Douglas Mawson was the first Australian to the South Magnetic Pole in 1908. My great hero. And I was brought up on stories of Mawson and Shackleton and Cook. You know, Cook, who first came to Australia without a chronometer, without a watch, just by doing lunar sightings for time. These incredible explorers. Now you can imagine, explorers have got a bit of mojo, haven't they? They didn't have Gore-Tex, and they didn't have GPSs, and they didn't have iPod and phones and anything. They didn't have all the gadgets around them, but still they went. Back then, hearsay was the earth was flat. People like Columbus went anyway, and Magellan, first to circumnavigate the world. The thing that I noticed about these former explorers in that era there, they were all beholden to those that would pay their way to do it. You see? Magellan had to change which country his origin. He had to give up Portugal to become Spanish so he could get under the Spanish funding. Columbus went under, as I said before, Columbus went under King Ferdinand II and Queen Elizabeth to get funding for his exploration to find India, which ended up being America, and that's why the Native Americans are called Indians. The fact is, those that went there were going under the funding of others. But with David, I noticed that he was doing whatever he wanted, you see, because he had money. And another component that I've learnt about people with mojo, they've got the confidence to commit and they've got money, you see. Now, having the money is a catalyst for choice, and it's about exercising choice. And that was the distinction I noticed. And that was the distinction that I wanted to learn from, and I wanted to learn from the best. So I went up to David. I'd been previously to see the ship's doctor, and I said, Ollie, how long would you give me if I dived over the side to cut the rope free? And there were no wetsuits on board, so it wasn't great, such preparation. And he said 5 minutes, not 1 second longer, because I'm not getting somebody getting hypothermia on my watch. Well, it was good enough for me. I go to see David, and everyone's looking at the charts, and the charts are no longer facing south to get to Mawson's Hut and to get to Antarctica. The charts are now facing north. We're going to cut our losses and get out of here. And I said to David, I'm volunteering to dive over the side to cut the rope free. And he said, you're serious? I said, yes, I'm serious. But I want 3 things. I want it filmed, hence the footage. Secondly, I want the international film rights to the footage, hence the documentary. And thirdly, David, I want you to be my mentor. I want you to mentor me to become the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. So we drove the yacht in behind the biggest and juiciest icebergs we could find to get out of the slop of the wind, because with the wind slapping against the boat, it was.
But it was just so cold, it was almost hard to make your brain work.
That's it, do that, that's it. I'll let it water down, that is good, mate. Off you go, son. Don't get tangled with the line, don't go cutting the safety line off.
See, it's 12 feet to dive down, so by the time you get there, you haven't got much breath left. And I just reached out and cut, and I cut and cut, chopping against the rope, knowing the whole time that the clock was ticking.
A few bubbles came up. We waited. We waited.
I came up to the surface and they said, Pete, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And I came up to the surface and I go, have you ever fallen in, you guys live in the Gold Coast, for goodness sake, but if you live in Melbourne, if you fall in a pool or the dam in Melbourne in the winter, every molecule of air in your lungs is taken away by the cold. And I couldn't say what I wanted to say, but what I wanted to say was change. The word that I wanted was change. Because some of us often in life avoid change, as if change is a bad thing. But change can be a good thing. If the change is a better strategy that can take you to where you want to go, even if the change is different to the strategy you had before. Because maybe the old strategy doesn't serve you anymore, and maybe it's time to take on a new strategy. You with me? Well, I went down there. You still holding that rope? Thanks, James. I said to Roy on the bow, I said, hold the rope tight, 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 so when I cut it, it'll come away. But when I got down there, I swam 12 feet diagonally, just holding my breath to get down there. By the time I got down there, I found the rope was so thick, and there's so much of it, and the bit of the rope that I want's at the bottom of this stainless steel shaft, and I wasn't going to get there in 5 minutes. And so I realised that change was going to be my friend. And I said, Roy, give me 4 feet more slack. So Roy gave me 4 feet more slack. And now with the slack, I dived down one more time, and I unravelled the rope over the prop, and the rope came free. When I came back to mainland Australia after that expedition, and I got to know David and the team better, and I went and climbed Kosciuszko with David and Rebecca, the first English person to climb Mount Everest, and Ollie, the ship's doctor, and myself. And I started hanging out with these people, and I realised they weren't special. There was nothing they had that I didn't have or couldn't get. You with me? And I started to investigate the whole concept of a 21st century adventurer, you see, a 21st century adventurer. And the distinction with a 21st century adventurer is they've got mojo. And the mojo they've got, and I'm sorry, you capitalist pigs, but we need to have that capacity to exercise pure choice, to distinguish ourselves from Magellan and Columbus and Cook and Mawson and Shackleton and Amundsen, to be free of the burdensome of the financing of others. Isn't it time for us to take control of our own finances now? Yeah? And isn't it time for us now to have the capacity to spend and to invest and to give at will? And to have the capacity to watch that thing that we give to grow and create a legacy, and start turning our thoughts into thoughts of legacy and not into thoughts of survival. Wouldn't now be a good time to start those thoughts and to start taking those actions to create that possibility and to bring those mentors into your life, those people who have been there before? Wouldn't now be a good time to start taking on those opportunities and start taking those changes? Well, that's what I decided right there and then. And I started to study David and what he'd done, the 7 summits, all the records, the partnership he has with Prince Charles. He came over to see me one weekend. He flew back on the Tuesday because he had a meeting with Prince Charles. He was teaching me his best of how to put the documentaries together, the fundraising. You look at people like Branson. You know, there's a character. I mean, the Virgin was just a record company. And I flew up with Virgin today, and there they are, you know, everything from credit cards and mobile phones and car rentals and all the rest of it. But the fundamental principle each of these modern-day 21st century adventurers have is philanthropy. Because I said this to David. I said, David, when I dive the other side, I said, David, I want you to mentor me to be the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. And he says, are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm serious, but I want 3 things. And he says, I'll do it, but it'll cost you. And I said, bring it on, how much? And he said, £10,000, 10,000 British pounds. I said, bring it on. All I had was a fledgling little cookie company flogging cookies to Japan. And I said, bring it on. Because when your why is high enough, you'll find the how. And I said, bring it on. And I said, David, I'm going to be the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. I'm going to be. And he turns to me and he says to me, is that all? David, I'm sorry, I am going to be the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. And he turns to me and he goes, is that all? He says, Blue, he used to call me Blue when I used to have hair. Blue, turn your life into a life of significance, or all you'll have is what you've got. Turn your life into a life of significance. And that, for me, beneath the southern aurora, the lights of the Southern Ocean, on the Southern Ocean, the southern lights, as the magnetic field enters through the stratosphere into the atmosphere, talking with David beneath the stars, and he's saying, turn your life into a life of significance. Commit yourself to causes that are greater than you. And if you look at these philanthropists now, look at what, $3 billion from Richard or Dick Smith. Dick Smith started the Variety Bash just by taking some mates on a drive to Burke. Gave $1 million last year, and Variety, each state raises just under $2 million per year now. Modern day adventurer travellers, which I'm asking you to become part of also, have a fundamental agreement with the universe that they'll give back to a cause that is greater than them. Because by giving to that thing that is greater than you, you might be like a balloon that a little person blows into. You get a little balloon and you blow a breath into it, what happens? The balloon gets bigger. You know what that is when you blow a balloon and it gets bigger? That is inspiring a balloon. In fact, the word to inspire, apparently I'm an inspirational speaker. I'm not sure how inspirational you are, but you're still here, which is good. To inspire comes from the word aspare, Latin derivative. Aspare means to breathe life. I am asking you to be a 21st century adventurer, travel with me, and to travel this globe and to inspire others with your stories of doing and daring, of taking on the market and winning, of taking on a small child and getting them educated in Africa, and caring for those around you on the journey with you. I'm asking you to be an inspiring traveller with me. Does it sound good? And that's why I look at that footage now when I come here on stage and it gives me goosebumps, because this is exactly what I do now, which is 10 years almost to the day from that avalanche. And to think that I allowed myself to be dictated by that avalanche for so long, it just seems ridiculous. But it took my friend to tell me my own story to realise this formula. And the formula is simply this: the confidence to commit to opportunities. This is a mojo compass that travels with, this is a physical compass that travels with you. You've got a compass that gives you directions, and from that direction, you can take a bearing, and you can go wherever you like, knowing where you're going because you've got one constant. It's like having a run on a ladder, having that constant. The confidence to commit to opportunities. And money is nothing but an energy. I've been broke, I've been rich, I've been in between. Money is just an energy. In fact, I say it's my own natural energy yield. It's just a yield of your energy, what you're putting out there. And it's proportional to the task you're taking on. And it was taught to me, again, this is by Andrew, my doctor friend in my hospital bed, and he says to me, haven't you remembered what I taught you? And what he taught me was this: if this is tasks, and this is resources, and resources can be money or time, and tasks can be otherwise known, many people call them problems. Otherwise known. You know the only time you'll have no problems in your life, don't you? The only time you have no problems in your life? 6 feet under. So what's the moral of the story? Go and get some worthy problems. Some really big, chunky problems, like having a 210-foot Russian icebreaker that's for $500,000 down the table with no people on it. That's a worthy problem. That's a problem that I had in May this year. It's now full. But the fact is, it's a worthy problem, you see? Go and get some worthy problems, because I've got my mojo back now, okay? Mojo thinking starts here. Scarcity thinking starts over here. So Andrew says to me, what you're doing is you're looking at your resources, and all you're doing is you're looking at your debt and your guilt. And when you look at your debt and your guilt, all you'll ever do is you'll bring it across over here, and you'll give yourself a task or a problem that's equal to that resource. You with me? Does that make sense? But a person with mojo doesn't look to the resources, they consider the possibilities, because I don't know why I deliberately made that messier, because I couldn't actually spell curious, but they're curious about their own capacity, and they set the benchmark up here. And the rule that every one of my stories has shown you so far, and the story that I'll show you next, is testimony to that when you set the task with the vital ingredient, belief, the resources will come. Do people agree with that? Seen examples in your life where you've really gone for something. But the distinction between watching The Secret and putting it down and going, oh my God, this is fantastic. There's a $30,000 bill, and oh my goodness, it just became $1 million check. Bullshit, okay? It just doesn't happen, all right? It doesn't happen. Get off your behind and take some massive action to turn that thought into reality. You with me? And you'll only take that massive action to turn that thought into reality when you believe. And through the believing, you will have the confidence to commit. You have the confidence to commit. It's amazing what will happen. Because it all is hinging beneath the pinning of significance, of helping others, a cause that is greater than you. A cause that allows you to be inspired to, like a balloon, grow bigger. And as you are inspired yourself, you become a light that shines to others. So my story is being told to me. And he said to me,
It's 7 hours before Peter comes round. The heart is coping. The question is, do his legs work? There is a simple test. Wiggle the toes. It is a great relief he has some mobility in his legs. But the battle is not over. Conventional wisdom says that recovery will be a slow and painful process. Peter is not very tolerant of conventional wisdom. A couple of days after the operation, Peter is struck by the promotional potential of his situation.
well, what happened was this. I was back here in Australia. I was studying all these great explorers. I was thinking, I'm going to be a great big explorer. It's going to be incredible. I'm as fit as a mallee bull. I'm pulling this tire on the beach, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the next thing you know, I'm being wheeled, and it's as quick as that. As quick as the change for you then, it was as quick as that for me. Next thing you know, I'm in the Royal Melbourne Hospital. I remember I'm sitting there, and I said to the doc, okay, doc, I'm lying there actually. And I said, okay, doc, can you fix it tomorrow? Can you leave it for 6 months? And he said, no. But why? And I said, oh, sorry, doc, I'm Peter Bland, and I'm committed to becoming the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole. In fact, £10,000, I put a deposit down. If you can knock it off tomorrow, we can leave it for 6 months. And he said, no. Peter, I think you better lie down there and realise the gravity of the situation. We're going to cut out your aorta and replace it with a bit of Dacron. There's a risk of paralysis and there's a risk of rejection of the graft. And you're not going anywhere. Well, then I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. Now, why do you think I might have cried? Eh? Losing the dream. Not the scarring. I got bigger scars than that. It wasn't the scarring, it was the losing of the significance that I might become. I lost my mojo. And the losing of the mojo was from the believing of somebody else's words. And I went so low, and it took David, again, my mentor, to send me a note. And he sent me a note, and he says, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Get off your behind and turn this into an opportunity. And that's why the footage says, when Pete woke up, he thought it was a great opportunity. Because I decided during that period in intensive care, with my mentor's help, this is a great opportunity. And opportunities are what? And you got to grab them. And all of a sudden the documentary wasn't going to be pole to pole anymore. It was going to be operating table to the top of the world. And so we got the footage. And all my mates said to me, Blandy, it's so lucky you got that footage when you were a crook. Like it was using your book, and it was using your documentary, and it was using your mini-series, and it was using this other documentary this year. So lucky you got that footage when you were a crook. Luck? There wasn't any luck. There was an opportunity, and we had the confidence to commit to the opportunity. And the fact that I made a couple of dollars out of it, that's neither here nor there. That inbuilt compass, it's true. The confidence to commit to opportunities can become money if you've got the persuasion, the attitude, and the systems. This is the systems, and this is a quick talk tonight, and I'm almost done actually. And I haven't even told you where I'm going, but I'm just talking about the systems behind it. You with me? But that's what took me from there, from having nothing, absolutely from nothing. Lost my company, lost my business, lost my savings, but I had a dream, and I had a dream that wouldn't go away. And thank God I had made that commitment to David, the deposit for that expedition to the North Magnetic Pole, because that's what drove me out of that hospital bed, and finally to arrive in northwest Canada, 13 months from that photo. This footage was taken by Channel 9 for the Today Show. You see, I became that little thing, that little inspiration to people. In fact, I became an inspiration for little people. In fact, every single school child in Australia was given the opportunity to work out how many times my heart would beat from base camp in northwest Canada, in a place called Resolute Bay. It's not the end of the earth, but you can see it from there, to the pole. And they would work out how many times my heart would beat, because I no longer have an aorta. My aorta's been cut out. I've got a bit of tubing from my heart to my diaphragm. And that became this polar trek against heart disease. It was minus 40 degrees wind chill factor. It was so cold. We had to smash it. Here's my ice suit over here, actually. Had to smash yourself in the face just to break the ice off. And as you broke the ice off, you could make a little breathing hole so you could breathe through here. In fact, I got this real ice wool fur, and the ice wool fur is fantastic because it heats the air up. It takes it up from about minus 39 to about minus 40, so you can breathe it. But you know, polar bears, frostbite, losing 10% of your body weight, all that was nothing. What was going through my mind was this. I made a bunch of promises to sponsors in Australia, and I wanted to honour that promise. I mean, if I wanted to move out of Melbourne, they'd be okay, but I wanted to go back to Melbourne, and these sponsors lived in Melbourne. The trouble with making these promises was that one of the sponsors, this particular sponsor, was actually a clothing company. And the clothing company was actually an underwear company.
It's on to the pole. But before breaking camp, Peter has a sponsorship obligation.
Right, back about 2 inch. Bit more. Yeah, that's perfect.
2,000 kilometres sailing to the South Magnetic Pole. 600 kilometres walking to the North Magnetic Pole. Mitch Dowd boxer shorts. Nothing should hold you back.
You like that? You know the cameraman asked me to film it again. I won't tell you what I said to him. Now the next day we got there. We got to the North Magnetic Pole. And you know that we couldn't carry sugar on that expedition. Sugar's heavy and it gives you energy. But there is no amount of sugar I could have carried on that sled, an 86 kilo sled. There's no amount of sugar I could have carried on that sled that could have given me the energy that I got from the one thing that I carried. And the one thing that I carried in that sled that gave me all the energy I needed to make sure that I wasn't first, but I wasn't last, I was there. And all that was an image, a symbol of this great country, the Australian flag. And a kid from the bush with a scar and a dream that wouldn't go away, despite health, despite finances, despite political pressure, despite family pressure, a dream that wouldn't go away, became the first Australian to the North Magnetic Pole in 1998. And he raised $2 million for the National Heart Foundation in the process. I am passionate about what I teach. I'm passionate about what I do. I'm out of time. That's my teaser. That's my talk. I've got lined up right here 10 minutes of footage and photos about what I'm doing next. Now, Jamie and I are taking 5 or 6 of you, Mojo people, hands up, to Antarctica already. Louis, darling, your shirt's set. I gave it to Jolie. You got it. And Robbie's coming. You know, Jamie and I are taking a tour to Antarctica on the 14th of February. 14th of February?
17 grand for a t-shirt.
And then we're taking 20 people on this unbelievable trip to Africa in September. Now, but I'm out of time, Jolly, and as a speaker, you can be good, you can be bad, but always be on time. So I'm done, man. I'm done, right? I'm queued up, good to go. So the question is this, isn't that right, Jolly? Everyone's to go. If you want to go, go. Seriously, little in-room break. I'm about to spend 10 minutes going through some footage of what's happening in Africa, okay? And how you are given this $5,000 trading program for free that'll fund the trip. I didn't have that when I was in hospital. I raised the £10,000. You're getting a $5,000 trading program to make the money to get there, but I don't care about you getting there. That's nothing compared to what I want you to do. If that's all you're thinking about, then don't come on my trip. You with me? Why am I saying that? I want you to raise money for this school outside of Usha, which means dusty place, in the base of Kilimanjaro. This beautiful program that Maasai Wanderings are doing. It's incredible, and I'll show you all about it. So you want to stay here and hear about it? Yes. Okay. You said it. Okay, so what happened out of this was, I came out of here, and raised the polar chick gets heart disease. Look at that. This is my point. I didn't go out there to make a book, to be on Australian Story and have a best-selling biography. That was not my purpose. Go and be you and let the rest of the world merchandise around you. That's their concern. Yeah? Just be you and let them follow. So again, remembering that all these stories I just told you were being told to me by my doctor friend Andrew, reminding me about when I used to have mojo. And the question to you is, have you ever thought of a time in your life where you've lost your mojo? And now I think you know that you're curious about where it is and you want to get it back. And the recipe for results is the same as making settler's shortbread. You know, as I said, on the normal cycle. Flour, sugar and butter. And that's the formula, time and time again. So I found the formula works. So what I did is I thought I'd do, well, if I'm going to be me and what I'm really passionate about, I want to teach fathers and sons to have a really good connection. I'm going to take them out of their domestic home front away from mummy, and I'm going to teach them to be men. A rite of passage through manhood. So I took 14-year-old boys out into the wilderness with their father, rite of passage. And then I took that same formula to the corporate market, and they loved it too. And the next thing you know, I'm getting every major bank, every major insurance company in Australia, they're all loving it. And the next thing you know, I'm lecturing at Victoria University at the Master of Finance program and the MBA program. I didn't go out there to do this stuff. I was just being me. But then they decided to merchandise around what I was doing. And this is not my story. This is your story. This is about what 2010 looks like for you, just being you. So I went and wrote a program, bring it all together. And I won't go through it in great details because we can talk tomorrow. Come and see myself and those people with these T-shirts tomorrow. They know all about it because we've been working through it, haven't we, on our webinars? We build networks, don't we? Hang out with these guys on the phone. It's like, night, Charlie, night, Johnny boy. This goes on for half an hour. It's like, I'm paying the bill. You hang up. Anyway. We have a webinar every second week, okay? There's a whole lot of, all over Australia and New Zealand. It's really cool, okay? This is my program. I'm passionate about it. This is the whole Compass program encompassed. The Lucky Life Formula. The reason I called it the Lucky Life Formula is I was sick of everybody telling me how lucky I was. They looked at my life and thought, it's so lucky. There's no luck in it. It's just this formula. And if a formula works, you apply it again and again and again. So you get that, okay? You get that. So I took that, here's a little expert from him, just quickly.
It's about you reading your body. If at least we get you to slow down and actually say it out loud, then that slows the process down already. And then one stage beyond that is to actually write it down, because we write slower than we speak and we speak slower than we think. So write it down. Write down this perfect world, what it looks like, what it smells like, who you're with, who you're being.
So that's the program. It goes through its interactive CD, DVD. It's all online program with a workbook program, and we speak every 2 weeks on the webinar. And that's all part of the coaching program that you'll get with Africa as well next year. So the network, the friendship starts now, okay? That became a whole mentoring program, one-on-one mentoring program. I've got many, many mentors. I won't go through that now. Other than I want to just show you, I'll show you George's quickly, one little example. I mean, any one of them you could see. Look, it's really, obviously he says I'm good, right? That's not the point. This is the point. He sends me this photo, right? He hears I'm boxing. I fought heavyweight at Coburg Town Hall last year before. Anyway, and he goes, oh yeah, I used to do a bit of karate. And here's old, lovely George, 63, just doing his job and all the rest of it. I used to do a bit of karate. And he sends me this photo. And he goes, yeah, well, I just jumped 10 people and did a triple cat roll and a flying kick, and I'm a triple black tip Dan taekwondo. And I said, George, get that photo right now. I mean right now, and put it in your foyer and put these words beneath it. My greatness is ahead of me. My greatness is ahead of me. See, how often in life do we think that our greatness is behind us, and we justify our existence today by being captain of the under-14 netball club or the under-15 soccer club? But our greatness is ahead of us. And the greatness I'm taking you to is this. In fact, here's what happened last week at my farm, 2 weeks ago at my farm. We ran this Mojo boot camp with my friend Melissa, and some of you people were here. Here, the polo cross ponies in the background. This is who's done much work on getting rid of past emotional pains. Anybody done rebirthing? A Landmark, Hoffman process, Tony Robbins, this is Walking on Fire. It's all of this on steroids, okay? On steroids, all right? You're getting it included with your trip to Africa anyway, but just show you some photos from last week, literally. And here we are setting up camp. That's the fire there where we literally, dinner that night. It's a whole interactive, intense 2.5-day program where you get dragged out of your tent at dawn and you get taken on the most deepest meditate you've ever contemplated, which you haven't even contemplated, and you get rid of every bit of baggage that's holding you back, and we smash it. And you come out of that and just chanting and meditating at dawn, and you come out of that and you roll right over. And then I'm just going really quickly, and then we get rid of that, and we dive into the water, and then we swim free. And when we come that night as a superhero, and we step into our zone as a superhero, and we talk to it as a superhero, and we act like superheroes. Who was I? Jack Sparrow. Oh, there's bells. It was fun. This is literally 2 weeks ago. So this is about people being great, allowing themselves to be great, because they get rid of their past pain. Because the past pain is the only thing that sits between you now and your future. So this formula about allowing yourself to take on worthy tasks is really a story about this. If fear sits here, and this is the past, and this is the now, and this is the future, and we build a beautiful... You did your vision boards this morning? The vision board sits here, okay? And you sit here. But unless we get rid of these fears, which stands for... Well, there's a few different ways of saying it, but you want to get past it whilst you disassemble it. I disassemble it. We smash it and get rid of it, and you step freely into your future, okay? And here are people declaring their future, going over, abseiling at Camel's Hump in Mount Macedon, and as they go over the edge there, declaring what their future looks like. Be curious about your own possibilities and allow yourself to step into that possibility. And then become that person. At the end of the day, if I was you, I'd be you. Thanks for your time.